Hey there, I'm the Mad Catster, and am I glad to see you here? I'm going to give you an update on all of the McBroom lawsuits, but I also want to delve into the Daily Mail article that Catherine McBroom had given an interview to, discussing the House and giving basically what amounted to propaganda. There's so much in it that I found that needed to be addressed that I'm going to address that as well, and I've got all the documents to go with it, so let's get into it. By the way, this is Cedric. You've met him before, some of you who've watched the videos. But if you stay tuned at the end of the video, I'm going to introduce you to my Siamese cat, Sybil, who is a purebred Blue Point Siamese, but she is a rescue cat. And I'll tell you her story if you stick around to the end. But anyways, let's get into this Daily Mail article that Catherine gave, where she gave this whole nonsense story again, and in fact embellished on her story and their false narrative about what happened to their house in the foreclosure. And she told a whole lot of crap that I decided really needed to be addressed. I had originally made this video last week, but my camera had been damaged, the cable had been damaged, and I had used my webcam to make it, and the color and everything was so horrible that while I was editing it, I decided I'm just going to remake it. So that's what I'm doing. I got the new cable, I'm making the video over. But while I was waiting for the cable, I'd gone back because I saw a few people had done stories about that Daily Mail article that Catherine gave, and I read through, and it wasn't just a short recap of what happened with the house. She actually embellished the story, and there's a few things that I want to talk about in that story that I have the proof are absolutely lies, of course. Is anyone surprised? So let's get started on that first. So I'm going to put this article up, and I just want to show you the headline first. And as you can see here, it says, exclusive. Popular YouTubers claim that they lost their $10 million mansion after getting scammed by a fake contractor who stole, in capital letters, their money and left them with an unfinished house that couldn't pass inspection. Well, we know that's not really the true story. We've covered this over and over again. And I think it's funny how they call this an exclusive. This article is so one-sided and is so not journalism. I went to school. I have a bachelor's fine arts degree in writing. And let me tell you, this is sort of what we would call a puff piece, meaning it's not really journalism. It's really meant to just bolster one side story and sort of give them an image boost. So there's no journalism in this article at all because there's no fact checking whatsoever. It's basically a free podium for Catherine McBroom to just spin her story again. And like I said, there's actually some embellishments that we're going to talk about because I have the receipts to show that she's just flat out lying again. So let's look at the next part of this article. So Catherine claims that she and Austin were basically screwed over by this contractor with a fake license who took their money and basically robbed them. You can see here she says she transferred the funds to finish the house and they dissolved the company within weeks. They took the money and ran and they never came back. For 2 years, they paid $70,000 a month mortgage on an unfinished house that didn't have gas, meaning no heat or hot water, it says. And ultimately, they were told they couldn't get a certificate of occupancy required for living in a house because the home couldn't pass inspection. Well, we know that's not true. We know, and I've shown you before, it showed that all of the stuff needed for the certificate of occupancy had been signed off on except for two small things that needed to be done. One was the HVAC system had to be inspected, and I think the other was the description, the legal description, and the map had to be updated. So that's a crock, okay? So now let's see. Let's go on to the next thing. And she goes on to say that she put millions of dollars into construction that was needed to combine the two houses, which she says she paid directly to the contractor she met with, and before he finished it, she claims he took their money and ran and never came back. So this is where the story gets even more unbelievable. So what she says is they paid the contractor for all of this stuff, and that he and his wife, so that would be Tammy and Avi Koklani, he and his wife had made an LLC or a corporation under a random name, and I didn't know at the time. Well, that's just baloney. They knew perfectly well who they were dealing with, and in fact, we've shown that as far as the development company goes, M Development, they were actually Ace Hat Collection, and Austin and Catherine were actually the owners eventually got transferred over to them, that company, and they then transfer the house to Ace Hat Collection. So, I mean, this is just nonsense. And the LLC she's talking about is probably T&L Renovation, I think it was called, is the company that the Koklanis had formed to do the actual renovation work. Well, they were fully aware of that because the contractor had been changed over from the prior owner's contractor to T&L. So that's baloney. She knew perfectly well what it was. And she says that after she transferred the money to him, the company was dissolved within weeks and they never heard from him again. Again, this is not true. As I've shown you, and I'm going to put it back up here again, according to the California Secretary of State's website, this company is still in business. And they, as recently as 2020, had filed a statement of information, which is an annual report, which is required every 2 years. So I would expect there must be another one coming, but it was never dissolved. The company still exists. So that's baloney. So this is this part of the interview, and I'm not reading the whole interview. I'm skipping to like the relevant parts. So this part of the interview, she tells another incredible story that is so unbelievable. She says that when they started looking into the contractor later on, they discovered he actually wasn't a licensed contractor. He was using someone else's license to make this happen. Well, we know that's not true because TNL Renovation had a license and the Koklanis had a license through that company. So that's nonsense. And she says that the real contractors, whoever that is, I don't know if she's talking about the contractors who the previous owners were using to get the permit or what, but TNL was actually listed with the city as the construction company that was working on the house. So I don't know what she's talking about. She's the real contractors who own the land. What? They own the land. We have the deeds that show that Ace Hat Collection, they transferred the house while they were in control of M Development to their Ace Hat Collection. So they transferred it from themselves to themselves. So I don't know what she's talking about. The real contractors who own the land came to our property while we were there, but they never introduced themselves as the actual owners. The McBrooms are the actual owners. The Ace Hat Collection's the actual owner. So what? I'm assuming she's talking about Avi Koklani. She says what he worked out with them was, hey, this is a family. They're well off. I know how to talk to them. I've already built a relationship with them. Let me handle everything and you guys make the money on the back end. What the hell is she talking about? The Koklanis are the people doing the renovation work. The McBrooms own the house. M Development, they were in control of M Development as well. So what the hell is she talking about? This like cloak and dagger mystery of, the mists cover the real owners and the real contractors, which is, it's just all fiction. Just come to find out he, Avi, I'm assuming, took all the money and never paid them. Paid who? They got screwed over as well, but the people doing the work were the Koklanis. So what did they do? Screw themselves? This makes absolutely no sense. And then Catherine tries to blame the foreclosure again on the fact that there was no certificate of occupancy. And she's saying that when someone finally showed up to inspect the house, they said there were so many mistakes that the builder made that it would never pass inspection, which is not true. We've seen the checklist. The city had already passed most everything except for the HVAC system. And she says eventually the house went into foreclosure because they couldn't get a certificate of occupancy. No, Catherine, the house went into foreclosure because you didn't pay your mortgage. That's why the house went into foreclosure. And if you really had wanted to, you could have cleared up those last couple of things and gotten your certificate of occupancy. But my guess is they just were way in over their heads and realized this house was well beyond their means. She says that all the money went down the drain. The house went into foreclosure because we didn't have a certificate of occupancy. Baloney. Okay. And then Catherine claims that they couldn't legally, which is true, but we know they were illegally living there because they weren't supposed to live there according to not having a certificate of occupancy and because their mortgage contract said that they couldn't live there. And she says, unfortunately, before we were able to speak up and talk about the issues with the home, the narrative was that the house was under foreclosure because we didn't pay our bills, but that was far from the truth. Really? Foreclosure happens because you don't pay your bills. So what? There's what? These mysterious people maybe had something to do with it. Again, these people that are a figment of her imagination. She says now she's trying to share her story to clear the air. She says that it's tarnished and tainted her image and that it makes it seem like I'm doing something wrong and that affects my real life. Well, yep, you're right. So she admits here, now we also know that they are renting the house that they're in. So that house that they showed on the tour back in the end of December, that is a rental. And she says right here that they started renting a new home. And she says that when they were trying to sign the lease, nobody wanted to rent to them because of all the false rumors that were being spread about them unable to pay their mortgage. Well, no, they're not false rumors. You didn't pay your mortgage. So people didn't want to rent to you because you didn't pay your bills. You don't pay your bills. You have a reputation for not paying your bills. There are lawsuits and other people that have spoken up time and time again saying that they don't pay their bills. So I wouldn't rent to them. So then she goes on to talk about that they did find a house, which we know they did because they were in a house. She said it was a new structure, that it was beautiful. And she goes on to say that the owner is an older gentleman and he had a son that is Catherine's age and that he's a lawyer and that he said to his father, "Oh, don't rent to them. I just looked them up on social media and they didn't pay their mortgage. That's why they went under foreclosure." Well, first of all, he's a lawyer. I doubt he's going to check your credit by going on social media. Normally, a landlord will have you fill out an application, then they pull a credit report, and that's how they find out whether you're credit worthy and whether you're not going to screw them over. So I find this hard to believe that he's making this snap decision based on rumors, which aren't rumors, that people are saying on social media that they were foreclosed because they couldn't pay their mortgage, because they were foreclosed because they couldn't pay their mortgage or didn't pay their mortgage. And then she says that because of that, they had to pay 6 months up front so that they could live in the house. Well, Catherine, take some responsibility. You had to pay 6 months up front, not because people are spreading rumors that are really the truth, but because you're not credit worthy. This guy, who probably depends on this house for income, you said he's an older gentleman, so he may be retired, and this may be part of his retirement income. He wants to make sure you're not going to walk out on him. And in fact, their previous landlord had filed suit against them after they moved into the McBroom McMansion because he alleged that on the last house they rented, they owed him $65,000 in back rent. So if I knew all of that about you, I would ask you for a huge deposit up front too. In fact, I wouldn't rent to you. But this guy decided to take a chance. I don't blame him for wanting 6 months. So I don't know what you're talking about. It's all based on the evidence. It's not based on the rumors swirling around social media. So then she basically says that in the end, they decided to let the house go and let it go under foreclosure. So Catherine also claims that someone on TikTok spread a rumor that they were selling their furniture because they didn't have any money. Well, my guess is not to I'm sure it wasn't to raise money, because I can't imagine they got a whole ton of money for their stuff. My guess is because that house was probably already furnished, even though they haven't come out and said it. I'm pretty sure that house was mostly furnished. So they just had to get rid of their stuff because they didn't have room for it. So, that's another lie. She claims here that they moved into the house and they had a designer come in and design the home. When? When did you do this? Boy, that's got to be the fastest turnaround for a design project for that huge house that you rented. You get all of that furniture, which a lot of people are saying it's so difficult to get furniture right now because of the back ordering due to the pandemic. So I don't know, they mysteriously had a designer come in and just poof, the house was furnished. And she says they didn't need the old furniture and it gave her bad vibes. So yeah, she must have consulted her crystals and it said, "Get rid of the furniture, Catherine." And then the biggest lie of all that I want to address, because I've got the documents to show that she's flat out lying. She's trying to make that poor contract. Well, I'm not going to say poor contractor. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't terribly honorable. I don't know. But certainly the story isn't the way she's portraying it. She says that he declared that Avi, I'm presuming, that he declared bankruptcy before they could sue him. So they decided, well, we can't sue him because there's going to be nothing to get. Well, I've got news for you. I'm admitted to the federal courts and I'm admitted to the bankruptcy court. And I went onto the bankruptcy filing system and I looked up to see Tammy and Avi Koklani. I looked up TNL Renovation. I looked up TMK Development. TNL Construction, as I told you before, is still in business. They've never filed bankruptcy. There's no listing for them. You can see that here. You can see here that TMK Development also never filed for bankruptcy. Then I looked up the Koklanis. And yes, the Koklanis did file bankruptcy, but it was back in the 90s, okay? So you can see here, I'm going to put this up. I've redacted a bunch of stuff because there were some other people with the same last name that, even though this is technically public record, I don't want to spread other people's laundry out in public. So it says Tammy and Avi Koklani, case title, Avi Koklani, Tammy Koklani, Chapter 7, which is like a complete liquidation, which means everything goes. You have exemptions. There's things you keep, but you keep a lot of stuff like your house and your personal possessions and things. But any liquid asset gets taken by the trustee of bankruptcy and distributed to your creditors, which is usually pennies on the dollar. But anyway, so they filed a Chapter 7, which wipes out all of your unsecured debts. Obviously, if it's secured, they're going to repossess whatever it's secured by. And they filed on July 14th, 1992, and it was closed on January 19th, 1993, which is typical. A Chapter 7 bankruptcy doesn't stay open very long because they're very quick. So, yes, they filed for bankruptcy, but Catherine, it was in 1992, not 2020, 2021, 2019. So, you're full of it. Tammy and Avi Koklani, either of their companies have never filed for bankruptcy, and it's just another blatant lie. It's a smear on this poor guy's wife who, regardless of what their relationship was like with Catherine, don't deserve to be smeared like this. And I'm actually surprised they haven't served a cease and desist on the McBrooms to stop spreading this crap, or worse yet, take them to court for defamation. So I don't know. We'll see if that's going to happen. But they keep trashing these people and trying to put all the blame on them when clearly all the excuses they made are lies. The buck stops with Catherine and Austin McBroom. They screwed up. They didn't pay their bills. Their house got foreclosed. Now they're renting. They had to pay a huge down payment because they're not credit worthy based on the record. And that's the story. Oh, also, that brings me to another thing. We were talking about secured things. So in the house tour that they gave at the end of December, they showed that they kept that player piano, that grand or baby grand piano that's a player plays itself. So remember we talked about in one of the last videos, the UCC filing statement is when you buy something of value, and it's usually because it's something of significant value, that the seller will file what's called a UCC filing statement to make it public record that they have a lien on this piece of property or this item, so that if something happens, they can come back and repossess it. So I looked, and the piano has a UCC statement filed against it. And I'm going to put that up here, and you can see. So clearly they're making payments on it. Amazing, they're paying something, but they're making payments on it, and there's a UCC filing statement. So if they default, that will get repossessed. Anyway, so now let's move on to the lawsuits, because I want to just update you on status of all the lawsuits and sort of give you where we are right now. So as many of you may know, Catherine McBroom, under her cosmetics company 1212 Gateway, has been sued by a couple of people. So Catherine McBroom's business partners with the 1212 Gateway company that she owns for her cosmetics business had filed suit against her, saying that she had hijacked the company's website and the social media, etc., and they were suing her. Well, as I had mentioned on my previous videos, that was dismissed, and you can see here, dismissal was entered as requested by the plaintiff. So TBL Cosmetics requested dismissal, and it was entered on September 7, 2021. So Catherine's done with that lawsuit. Then there's that other lawsuit, 360 Sourcing Group, that I talked about before as well. And they're suing 1212 Gateway because of unpaid bills. Surprise. For materials and services provided to 1212 Gateway that they've never been paid for. And that lawsuit is still going. There's a case management conference that is scheduled for January 28th, 2022. So later this month at 8:30 a.m. And I will monitor that and see what the outcome of that is, whether there's some kind of settlement in the works or what's going to happen, or whether it's going to keep going to trial. So I'll take a look at that. And then we had the lawsuits that are related to the failed Social Gloves event that Austin made a fiasco of, and now he's talking about doing a second one. And I'll be interested to see, first of all, if anybody agrees to fight in it, because of the fact that so many people did not get paid the last time, or whether he's even able to get this event off the ground based on the fiasco that happened with the first one. But anyway, so one of the cases was Austin was suing LiveX Live because he was claiming that it was all their fault, that they screwed it up, etc. And we know now from the records that we've looked at in previous videos that that's not true, that they had given him their professional advice. He believed that he knew best, did it his own way, and it was a flop. Okay, so that suit is still going on. They claim at the case management conference, you can see here it happened on November 30th, they claim that the parties are engaged in settlement discussions. And Austin alluded to that in one of the last videos they made at the old house, where they were telling their sob story about how they weren't victims, but everybody screwed them. And he had alluded to something about settlement. So this is his lawsuit against LiveX Live. He's claiming, or his attorneys are claiming, the parties are engaged in settlement discussion. So we'll see. And then we had the case of LiveX Live against Austin McBroom. And that was saying that he was defaming them by blaming them and by spreading nasty rumors and false information in the press and in the public, that it was all their fault and that they were to blame and they were unprofessional, etc. And they're suing him. They had a case management conference as well on December 8th. There's no indication of any settlement. It looks like they are moving to trial. And with these litigation cases, they take forever. This trial is scheduled for May 8th, 2023. So more than a year from now. And that's where that stands right now. There's nothing else to report on that one. Then we had Taylor Holder, who apparently settled with Austin. I don't know, the settlement agreement doesn't get filed with court usually, and usually there's a confidentiality agreement and non-disclosure so that nobody can talk about what the settlement was, and there's no public record of it. So they clearly came to some kind of a settlement, and Taylor Holder on December 22nd, the court entered the dismissal of his lawsuit against Austin McBroom. Then we have the Beverly Hills lawsuit, where as you remember probably, Austin and Catherine and their friend had summoned a mob to descend on Beverly Hills and wreak chaos without any kind of a permit or permission from the city. It caused the city a lot of man hours from the police. They had to bring in police from neighboring cities to help out. And it was just a big mob. And you can see in the video here the people marching through the streets because they were summoned by their dear leader, Austin McBroom. Well, Austin McBroom committed the cardinal sin that we've talked about before. He did not file an answer to the complaint. Why, I do not know, because clearly he has attorneys working for him. So, naturally, the city of Beverly Hills, as you can see here, they've requested entry of default judgment. And in fact, the court did enter default judgment on December 1st, 2021. So unless Austin does something to try to appeal that, I'm pretty sure it's expired by now. He's going to be stuck with that default judgment, and he's going to be responsible for all of that money that they want from him. All I can say to the city of Beverly Hills is good luck. You're going to need it trying to get money out of them based on all of the people that are in line ahead of you with their hands out. So we'll see what happens, whether they take further action to collect the money. They can file action with the court to try to collect on the money by attaching assets and things. So we'll see whether that's going to happen. So that's pretty much the lawsuits that were at the forefront of this whole mess. But thanks for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support last year and all of the kind things that a lot of you have had to say. Me and the cats are really grateful for you giving us your attention, and we really appreciate it. Stay tuned because I'll introduce you to Sybil. Hit the thumbs up. Please tell me down below what you think of all of this mess, and like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. So for those of you who are here for the cats, this is Sybil. Sybil is a purebred Blue Point Siamese, and she's named after the daughter Sybil from Downton Abbey. You'll meet Edith and Mary, my two little black cats who are sisters. They're from the same litter, who have a really sad story, but I'll save that for the next video. But so I've got Edith, Sybil, and Mary, the three daughters from Downton Abbey. So Sybil's a purebred Siamese. Her story isn't tragic. It's just a little sad because, believe it or not, she is a purebred, but she is a rescue cat. I did not buy her. I do not buy cats. I got her because I had gone to drop some stuff off to the no-kill shelter that is near me. And while I was there, in the window, they have like this little room to the right when you walk in where they put cats that they're either just coming in or for some reason need to be separated. There was Sybil, sitting there terrified all by herself. And so I went to the desk and dropped off the stuff I was bringing them, and I said, what's the story with that cat? And they said, oh, well, that cat is being surrendered because her human mama had to go into a nursing home, which is really sad because I'm sure whoever she was really loved Sybil. So apparently the daughter was still there doing the paperwork. She hadn't even been booked in. And I said, oh my God, I want that cat, because I had had a couple of Blue Point Siamese cats before, and they're really great cats. They're like little dogs. They follow you around. They like to jump up on your shoulder, like to jump up on top of the doors. They talk and interact with you. They're very attached. They usually attach themselves to one person, and the two I had had before just were the best cats ever. So when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, I would love to have another Blue Point Siamese cat. So they said, well, why don't you go spend some time with her? So I sat for about an hour with her in the room. She was terrified. She was shaking. I could barely get her to sit with me. And eventually, as time wore on, she did let me hold her. And as the daughter of the woman she had belonged to was leaving, she saw me and she sort of gave me a thumbs up because she could tell that I was starting to bond with the cat. But also I found out there were three other Siamese cats as well. One, I guess, was a male, and their two daughters were there. And this is another moment where I just kicked myself, because if I had had my druthers, and at the time I really wasn't looking for more than just one cat, I probably would have taken the whole family group. But I'm sure they're with loving families, and you know, they weren't little cats, so it's not like they were kittens. They were all adults. So I'm sure they're all with good people, because that shelter is really good about vetting people before they adopt out. So anyway, so I took Sybil home. So now I have Sybil, who is really my little girl. She follows me everywhere. She's very jealous little girl. She does not like me to give attention to the other cats. She's very possessive, and she likes to sleep with me at night. Clarice is being bad. but she loves to be with me, and she has different voices. It's really funny because like if I go away for overnight, like if I go visit my mother, when I come back, she'll be like "Rah, rah, 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 rah," because she's acting all sad and pissed at me because I was away, and so she's got all different voices. So I always know what her issue is, and she loves to be with me, and she's a very very sweet girl. So that's Sybil's story. I'll hopefully next time I'll introduce you to Edith and Mary. Their story, I mean, they're perfectly fine now, but their story is kind of sad, and it's one that really gets to me. So I'm sure there'll be a tear or two, but I'll introduce you to them the next time. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And those of you who stay to see these stories, thank you for all your nice comments. I really appreciate it. I really love my cats. They're like kids to me, literally like kids to me. And I take really good care of them. I know some people worry, like when you tell them, oh, I've got 16 rescue cats, and like, oh my God. It's like, no, I'm not a hoarder. I have all of my cats go to the vet. They all get fed very good food. They're all very healthy. As I told you before, I pay my vet a small fortune every year on care for my cats. So I I take them to the vet at the drop of a hat. I mean, if I even think there might be something wrong, I'll take them to the vet because I'd rather be safe than sorry. So, anyways, so fear not, my cats are very well cared for. And again, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Me and the cats appreciate it. I hope you have a healthy, happy new year, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.